friends! It's Mikkel. If you don't know me, hi. Welcome. Please subscribe. Petty things out of the way. I thought it'd be fun today to make a little video on what it's like to be an actress in LA. Like the real deal nitty gritty of it. Not a success story. I'm obviously not a success, but what it looks like juggling auditions and life when you aren't a name, when you're just trying to pay rent. If you don't know me, I have been doing the whole acting thing for a long time. I signed with my first agent when I was 9 years old. So 12, almost 13 years of represented acting. Now, if you know nothing about acting, you have agents, you have managers. Once you get to be a big name, you have like publicists and like legal people and blah, blah, blah. But usually for someone at my level, we have agents and we have managers. Agents submit you for auditions and they tell you where to be when, what the project is, and details about it. Managers are a little bit more hands-on. They'll call you and talk to you about like your career. They will also submit you for things, but they'll also be like, hey, you should boost your Instagram by doing this. Or my manager was like, hey, you should post more YouTube videos, things like that, that kind of help you build yourself as a whole. So I personally have a commercial agent, which I am signed in both their commercial department and their print department, which is more like model type stuff. I'm definitely not a model, but if you pay me, I will do it and I will pretend I'm a model. And then I am signed with a hosting agent. So if you've seen like my Tastemade stuff, that's hosting, or whatever, where I'm not being a character but I'm talking to a camera. Like now, technically everybody on YouTube is a host. So that's what that is. I'm signed to a theatrical agent, which that is TV and film. So things with like really deep characters, basically TV and film. And then I have my manager. So I'm signed with 3 different agencies and I'm signed with my manager. You could also be signed within a voiceover department, like I did voiceover work growing up. You could be signed with an agent that focuses purely on theater or musical theater, which is different from a theatrical agent. Don't get those confused. There's so many different random things you can do. I think people in the sports world have sports agents and people in the literary world have agents. I don't even know, I'm just talking about my world right now. That's how you get auditions. You can also self-submit by going on to websites like LA Casting or Actors Access and self-submit, but those are usually either lower paying opportunities. So for example, you might only be paid like $100 a day to be on this like kind of low level film. Or you could also sometimes self-submit for big commercials, but it is very rare that you'll be called in on a self-submit. They usually kind of only pick actors that have been submitted by an agency because that gives them a level of like professionality. But it has happened. When you sign into auditions too, especially commercial auditions, you write your name and your agent and whatever. So I kind of like to glance and see how many people were self-submit. And I would say 1 every 5 auditions I go to, I will see someone that was just self-submitted instead of an agent submitting them in. So it can happen, it's just not as common. So those are the worlds I work in, is commercial, TV, film, and hosting. I get a lot more commercial auditions than you get TV, film, or hosting is kind of slow. But commercial auditions are a lot of fun. I literally just got home from one because A, they usually don't give you a very big heads up. Usually it's the day before they tell you to be here tomorrow 10 a.m. So you have to drop everything and go. That's the reason I don't have a real day job, because I can't, because I couldn't go to auditions. And when you get there, there's rarely ever a script. Today I had 1 line and they sent it to me ahead of time. Usually there's not a script. They have you stand, usually go with like 3-4 people in the room and like act out a scenario, or they will write lines on a big poster board and be like, read that. It's so chill. It's so chill. And print is kind of in that same world where you just show up. They might ask you a personality question to make sure you're not an awful person, and they will take a couple still pictures of you and just to make sure you are who you say you are, your height's what you said your height is, etc. So that's kind of that world. Usually, for example, later this week I'm filming a Disneyland commercial. I went to 3 callbacks for an audition and 2 callbacks for that one. Normally commercial, you'll go to 1 callback. The audition is with the taper, and the callback has like the director and the clients in the room, so the people paying for the commercial. So since Disneyland is a big corporation, there was like 15 people in the room. I don't even know who everyone was. That's how that works. Film TV is what everyone kind of wants to do, because it's more at least I'm speaking for myself here, there's more substance. You just feel more satisfied when you book something like that it's a lot harder to book. Usually for film and TV, if it's a bigger role, you will have to do a self-tape, which means either money or you have to have a great setup in your home. So they will send you sides, which is a couple little scenes, and be like, hey, can you have the self-tape in 2 days? So since I live alone, I go pay $35 to get my self-tape done, which is almost like going to a fake audition studio where there's a reader, there's a camera, we do the scene, and then they send me the actual scene, which I send to my agent, which my agent sends to casting. It's a long line of things. That's not ideal because A, it costs money, and B, you don't get to know the casting director, but that's kind of the way that it's going, which is fine. I do a lot better when I'm in person. I do better under pressure. I do better when I can like kind of chat with the person ahead of time and get to know them. So I like to go in for roles. Usually when you go in for roles, you're either pretty established, they decide to make a change late in the game, or it's for a smaller role. So a couple days ago, I went in for a role that was just a co-star, which means like a larger role, and only a few episodes of this show. And since it wasn't a lead, they just brought like 10 girls in person to read for this role. That is always so much better in my opinion. It's scarier, yeah, it could be a little scary. And then hosting, usually you show up and there's a teleprompter and you gotta read things off a teleprompter and look pleasant while you do it. It's so simple, but that's the audition processes of all of that. Most actors have night jobs, most actors are servers. You have to be flexible during the day. You cannot have a day job, at least not like a strict corporate day job where you have to be there from 9 to 5. Some people are like personal assistants or flexible things where they can just be like, hey, I gotta duck out for an hour for an audition, but I'll be right back. One weird thing, which is a stereotype and so true, I cracked up at the movie La La Land during those auditions because so many of them were so true. You sit in a room with 10 people that look exactly like you and you realize how replaceable you are. It's very humbling. You're like, cool, there's so many of me, I'm not special. Also, you can have some very nice casting directors and you can have some people that are on their phone and they don't care if you do well or not. Most of the time for bigger projects, they already have a lead in mind. They already have someone that they want. It's usually a big name, but they are holding auditions. I think there's a law that they must hold auditions for some sort of reason that the union put in place. I'm really bad at legal stuff. If you know of this law, please comment below. There's SAG, which is Screen Actors Guild, which is a union that protects actors. And I think one thing that they do is try to force people to hold auditions for SAG projects instead of just handing out the role. But they usually do that as a formality if they have someone in mind. So there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of juggling. There's a lot of last minute things. There's a lot of quick memorization. In order to be an actor, at least the audition side, you have to be quick at memorizing. You will literally get a 10-page, 3-scene sides and have less than 24 hours to learn it and have to take into account that you also have work, and if you're me, you have school and you have other things going on, so you really might only have like 30 minutes to learn these 10 pages and you just gotta do it. You gotta be memorized. You don't wanna be the person that reads the script in the audition. Sometimes I like to have it on my lap if it's a sit-down scene as like a safety blanket, but I don't look at it. Just knowing it's there makes me feel better. You learn tips and tricks. What it's like to be in the room in an audition is you usually slate. So, you know, you say like, hi, my name's blank and this is the role, and then you just jump right into it. Sometimes they will give you direction and have you do the scene again to see if you can take direction well. Sometimes they're like, you're great and I don't want to see another scene. Sometimes they're like, you're not what we're looking for and I don't want to see another scene. I always like it when I get direction because I'm like, they care enough to see me do it twice and they care enough to see if I can take direction well. So this is a good sign. When I first started off when I was young, I was like, oh no, I did so bad that they want me to redo it. But now I realize that that's not the case. There are a lot of stereotypes about actors. Personally, 80% of them, I don't think I would gravitate towards being natural friends with them. The people that I've met outside the acting world that are also actors, I love. But when you meet people inside the acting world, there's almost like this pressure to, it's just a very pressuring environment, and I think it might not bring out the best in people. So it's funny, when I'm at auditions, I just try to find a corner in the waiting room and read over my lines and not get into a conversation, because it's best to remain professional and just stay focused anyways. I actually had someone request in the comments below for me to do a video on how I balance school and acting and a job and wedding planning and volunteering at my church and everything that I do. I juggle a lot. I sleep sometimes. No, I actually always get 8 hours of sleep. So if someone wants me to explain like how I prioritize and get things done, and if that sounds at all interesting to you, let me know, and I can definitely make a video on that as well. But I have so many friends back home that have no idea what the acting world looks like, so I thought it would be fun to kind of explain a little bit what my job looks like and the inconsistency of it and the truths. So I hope you learned a little bit from this. If you're an actor friend in the acting world, sorry, why did you click on this? You already know. We live this. We live this every day. One of these days, we can do it full time and just be called in for roles instead of called in for auditions. She says 13 years into the process. Well guys, thanks for watching. I have fun hanging out with y'all, so if you want to hang out with me more, you can subscribe. Do what you want. I'm not gonna force you to. Also, side note, Tastemade made a YouTube channel for my show, and I didn't know about it until today. So I will link it below where you can watch some episodes and read all the mean comments I got, which is sometimes fun and sometimes scary. I don't talk to plants in real life, okay? Not often.